is. It's a beautiful Wednesday. This is like my favorite weather here in New York. It's like just like low 70s, low humidity, sunshiny. Makes me want to be out on a motorcycle somewhere.
I mean, you can be out on a motorcycle anytime, anywhere.
I mean, somebody needs to buy me a motorcycle first.
Oh.
Guess that would be me.
I mean, we can always start a GoFundMe. It seems like what everybody's doing nowadays.
Right? Buy a ninja for a ninja.
There you go.
I sense a giveaway coming up in the future, maybe. So welcome to the show, everybody. We are here today. We're going to talk about a concept in education that I believe we do really well in skills. And I didn't used to do very well back when I was more of a traditional teacher. And the concept is called interleaving. So it's a big fancy word. And basically it started off being exactly what it says. They would have a textbook of sorts. And then in between the pages, they would insert blank pages. So they would interleave the blank pages with the textbook pages. And the idea was that as they went through the lessons and the textbooks, and you talked about examples of how to do math problems or how to learn about history, the students would be able to have insights and ideas about ways to apply the lessons, and could then use that paper either to highlight notes or to jot down their ideas so they didn't lose it. So it was like early note taking. As a concept in education, interleaving is one of those things that looks really good on paper, but it's sometimes very difficult to do. And if you look at like an elementary school or a high school, maybe is probably a better example. You go and you study for a period mathematics, and then you go study for a period home economics. I don't think they teach home ec anymore, but you get the idea. Then they go study for a period English, and then they go study history. And these are very separate concepts. When you apply an interleaving concept, we're actually going to weave together in between all the lessons aspects of the other classes. So when you're in math, you might be learning how to calculate exponential growth. And then you go to history class and you learn about the bubonic plague. And now you can use the math concepts that you learned about exponential growth to figure out how the plague spread, or even how COVID spread. And when it was like 8 people, nobody worried about it. But then it was 16, and then it was 32, and then it was 64. And then you can go to English class and learn about the different ways that the bubonic plague affected literature. So like all these different things would tie together, and it would give students a really clear picture and understanding of each of the individual concepts, because they all tied together and related to a bigger whole. So in martial arts, we tend to do that same thing where it's, hey, it's Monday, we're doing forms. All right, today is Tuesday, we're doing weapons. Today is Wednesday, we're doing sparring. Today is Thursday, we're doing, and we don't always tie those things together until much later on in a student's training, when we say, all right, you're a black belt, and this is what all these things really meant. In skills, we kind of turn that sideways. And what happens is, because we're skill-based, each of the skills contains pieces of the other skills, and we can actively talk about that with the kids. And like my favorite examples are like in core skills, just because it's my favorite age group. If we talk about like the speed skill, well, speed includes both being fast, but also you have to have a technical ability. So it includes aspects of technique. If you look at the intensity skill, which is our board breaking, well, that includes technique, but it also includes courage. So these are all different skills that tie together, and we can reinforce them with the kids as we go through our discussions. And it gives them a great overall picture of where we want them to go. So as we look at this, I want to look at this both, we both do skills, obviously. Yeah. But let's talk about it in ways that like people could start to even if they're not skills members, how can you bring your classes and your lesson plans to a more integrated place where you're starting to talk about it?
So, like, I think what a lot of schools, when they're doing forms, if they're spending time in just simply educating their students on what's the purpose behind forms, right? And, I like to explain it in a way where we go, okay, here's the definition of a pattern or a form, right? It's a combination of moves put together, simulating fighting multiple opponents. And I can't remember the name of the movie. I think White J. John was in it. I don't know if I'm calling his name correctly, but they were talking like it was about how he's a traditionalist. He's in the corner fighting or doing his forms, right? And this other guy is in the octagon, and he's an MMA fighter. And he's like, "You want me to fight him? Man, I'm gonna beat him in a heartbeat."
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, and he was in there in the corner doing his forms, right? And the amazing thing part is he gets in the ring and he fights this guy utilizing the forms. So to kind of answer your question, if we're able to break it down, dissect it, and just take each piece of the form and see the intention behind it, we can take that and utilizing from a form perspective, from a sparring perspective, from a drill perspective, from how it's utilized as a weapon, correct? So, and again, kind of like you mentioned, the nice thing about the skills program is when you look closely into each one of the drills that we're utilizing, and you just think about it for a second, you're going to go, man, that is a great sparring strategy. So let me go back and answer your question in terms of what we did last night, because I'm glad you brought this topic up. Don't lose your feet. It's an awesome game. Okay, it is an awesome game. And you're simply taking the noodle and you're swinging the noodle on the floor below the student's feet. And all they do is jump up with both feet in the air, right? Dane Turner is our second highest ranking here in the studio. He's a 5th degree black belt. He's fought in Europe. He's fought with Gordon's team, Jackson's team, Gavin's team. Okay. He's about to go to Battle of Atlanta here this weekend, and he wanted to get a drill that would help him just pop up and down on his feet. I said, guess what we're doing? He goes, I have no idea. What do you got up your sleeve? I said, we're going to do don't lose your feet or don't lose your toes. I can't remember the name of the drill. For some reason, it just hit my head. And he was like, oh, God, are you kidding me? I was like, no. It's a great way to get conditioned. And guys, this drill, is it basic?
Yeah, I think it's a basic skills drill.
It's a basic skill drill, jumping, right? And they were having a blast with it in class. You know what I mean? And simply, I'm swinging the noodle, and all he has to do is jump up and down for 30 seconds. So instead of us doing it like, the basic skills for the skills, I said, just 30 seconds, that's it. Pop, 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 pop. Somebody's keeping time, and I'm swinging. And of course, my speed is fast. And all he has to do is pop up and down. Now we're utilizing certain activities or certain drills or certain something that may be in a form that help the students jump up if they're doing a higher kick. Things of that in order for us to connect each piece that we need to connect of why we're teaching what we're teaching or what's the purpose.
And I think then by an instructor being able to demonstrate, to the kids, hey, I'm using this same technique where I'm only working on this skill. It's building my focus. It's building my footwork. It's building the strength in my calves. And look what I'm about to do with it. The kids all look up to the instructors and they want to do what the instructors can do. And sometimes they don't really see that path forward. And so I think that's very valuable for them to see the instructor doing the same exact thing. And it's going to make it more relatable so that next time you teach that class to the 5-year-olds, you can now say, okay, I know you guys want to work in sparring. That's the instinct skill and extreme skills. We're only in basic skills. But focus leads to the courage skill and a couple other skills in core. that leads to your self-defense and sparring in extreme. And I can start to really layer together how each thing works. And then for those kids where like sparring is intimidating, I can reverse that too and say, okay, so sparring is a little intimidating. Let's just work on the footwork aspect.
Yep.
Let's just work on the reaction aspect. Let's just work. And as I build that confidence and competence in each of those things, with the overall theme of that goal of being able to spar, it makes each of those things a little more powerful, as opposed to just coming in and saying like, well, today is bounce over the noodle day, and not giving that intellectual correlation.
Yep.
And there was just a paper that came out. I didn't read the whole thing yet about, it was an educational study, and they said that teachers who make stronger intellectual connections to the lessons, including the end result of why the lesson is important, tend to have better results on tests in their students. This came out of like the public school system, so it's not a direct correlation to what we do. But I think it was really interesting because in skills, one of the ways that we interleave concepts is by changing how we use our mat chats. And we don't do the mat chat at the end of class. Like traditionally they say, do the mat chat at the end of class, where you bring all the kids to the edge of the mat and you talk over them to the parent, so the parent knows the value of your program. This is valuable, but it's not how we do our mat chats. We have life skills for that. For us, the mat chat is done in the beginning of class. And it's a way to introduce an idea, to tell them a little bit about what that idea means, to introduce them to how that thing will help them be better martial artists, and how it will help them outside of the class. Because if the lessons aren't leaving the dojo, we're failing at half our job. And when we build those intellectual connections, and then we go to drills where, hey guys, you don't have to necessarily remember this, so don't worry about if you make a mistake, but remember how I said that agility means having good footwork. And then in this first drill, we're working on actually trying to jump the noodle, and it's a little harder than you thought it was, but here's some tips to make you better. It lets them take like that. Oh, I know what you were talking about now, and I see what you meant by that. Now I can go to testing, and because I've already worked together all these different theories, including reinforcing those other skills, it takes courage to try, even though you didn't, you worried about getting hit by the noodle and somebody laughing at you. It takes perseverance to keep going, even though you made a mistake. I'm interleaving those concepts. So now when we go to testing, well, testing just means, hey, we've got 10 minutes, learn it as best you can. And it happens so quickly. The learning experience happens so quickly.
And I think too, it happens quickly because how we ignite the brain.
And that's what it's all about, right?
We just we turn it on so fast that they're able to grasp it quickly. And we don't necessarily have to worry, okay, go home and practice. We say that, right? But we turn, again, we teach with the brain and mind. And because I know at that specific age group, this is what they're capable of doing, the way I'm relaying the message is enough for them to understand it and grasp it right away.
And, you mentioned go home and practice. We all say that, right? Make sure you practice. If you want to get good at this, you have to practice. And then we get those calls back like, little Johnny doesn't want to practice. I keep trying to get him to practice and he doesn't want to practice. When you can use more of this interleaving concept where you're building upon intellectual connections and helping them visualize end results, the practice becomes an intrinsic motivation. I don't have to force them to practice. And in fact, forcing somebody to practice usually has the opposite result, because it makes the reward of having practiced more important than the practice, or it creates strife. And then it becomes a negative emotional attachment to that thing.
Yep. And
if you can say like, hey, if you want to be able to be really good at soccer, this drill will help you. The kid loves soccer. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to practice with that warm up.
So I'm glad you said intrinsic motivation, because the way we teach has a lot more an impactful method, right? We're more of the influencers in their life to make them do, let me phrase that, to help them do what they need to do. So it's not a chore. When they go home and they practice, the parents turn it into a chore. Let's face it.
And that's not a blame game. That's just, we don't have the tools as parents and instructors either. You know,
yeah,
we go through a lot of training to be able to do this.
Exactly. Like I remember teaching for me became a chore. I remember I was talking to the students and the parents that this should be part of the, daily routine. It needs to be a chore, right? We don't do that anymore. We don't even ask the parents to have the kids practice at home anymore, because it will turn into such a turn off thing. Like it's gonna turn them off right away. They're not gonna be motivated to do it right away, and therefore kids will end up saying, "I'm bored. I don't want to go." Well, why don't you want to go? Because I just don't want to go. Well, because the parents turned it into a chore. And we've helped the parents make it a chore, right? Don't do that. Don't put that burden on the parents, because those children will end up dropping off super fast, super quick. The parents won't teach the same way as you teach.
You know, one thing I learned from Kelly's course in the CPNS program, which, by the way, the next semester of the CPNS program does start next month. It's going to be 2 weeks. Yeah, well, next month for July. So you can get in on that at skillsworldwide.com/certify. You can read all about what we're doing. But one thing I took out of Kelly's course, which was all about the theories of motivation. First of all, was that there were 5 pillars of motivation and 5 different ways we can motivate kids. But no matter what they were, they all led to the idea of getting the child to want to do it, as opposed to just telling them to do it. And when they want to do it, we call this intrinsic motivation. And then it boils down to there's 3 concepts that have to be in place for a child to be intrinsically motivated. The first is connection. They need to feel connected to you and to the lessons. We talked about that intellectual connection. They also need to be connected to the person asking them to practice. If it becomes a strife is disconnection. I want this, you want that. We are on 2 sides of a gap. So they have to have connection to you. And one of the ways they get that is through knowing that you want the same things that they want for them, knowing that you have the answers. They have to have that confidence that you have the answers and that you're leading them in the right direction. So even more important, to be there with them as well as for them. The second thing they need is competence. So sometimes when they push back on things like practicing, it's because they don't feel they have the competence to be able to do it. And if they don't have competence, they won't have confidence. So sometimes, as we were talking about before, chunking those up into smaller things. They don't want to practice their forms. Fantastic. Before bedtime, show me your 5 best roundhouse kicks. Aren't roundhouse kicks in forms? They're still practicing. And the third thing is autonomy. So normally when we think about autonomy in the sense of motivating somebody, it's like, here's the thing, now go try it. And it's like adult led, or it's, all right, here's 5 moves of your form. Now go over in the corner and practice. But it's still adult led. One of the reasons that in skills programs, we only train twice a week. There are some students that come more than that in additional programs, but it's designed for twice a week because kids need autonomous play. They need to take the concepts that you've taught them intellectually, that they've practiced physically, that they've experienced emotionally, and now they need to get it out into their free play. And the truest form of practice is when they're outside playing in the back with their G.I. Joe and their Barbie, and instead of G.I. Joe and Barbie, making little kissy faces, G.I. Joe and Barbie are sparring. Now you know that the child that's practice. They're experimenting with these ideas vicariously through the toys. And that's where the autonomy part comes in this idea of intrinsic motivation. They won't pick that up unless you give them reason to want to do it. So you have to really be tying those lessons even more powerfully to something that they want intellectually, not just, hey, I want everybody to be a world champion sparring extraordinaire. That means nothing to them. But like, dude, you want to be an extra awesome ninja? This is what you have to do.
Well, you said that means nothing to them, which I totally agree, by the way. But what kind of pressure are you putting even on your teens or adults? If you tell them, I want you to be the best ever, sparring extraordinaire. I don't do that. I don't put any pressure on my competition team ninjas. I don't. Our signature skills, they totally understand when we go to compete, we're doing it for fun and to be better than myself from the last competition. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go? Yes. Did you get a better score on your form than you did last time? Yes or no? What do we need to work on? But once you put that pressure on them, forget it. It's going to be it's going to go in the wrong direction.
Yeah. So, I mean, like competition against self, or even just the joy of going out and competing. Like I was a national competitor, but I was not particularly good. I was good, but I was not like going to go world champion. I was not going to be professional fighter, but I enjoyed it. And in fact, I'm horrible at point sparring, but it's one of my favorite things to do because of just the rush. And even when people tag me, it's like there's a certain joy in just the art of, oh my God, I can't believe you pulled that off on me. And it was amazing. That's intrinsic motive. I'm getting like goosebumps thinking about, that's the fun of the art. And that's what we want to encourage, not just did you win.
Yep.
And I think the final part of this, even as we've spoken about practice, is can we take this lesson the same way maybe we took the lessons of mathematics and applied it to virus spread and applied it to how it affected literature and applied that to how that affected political science? Can you take what's happening in your school and find ways for those lessons to continue when they're with the parents, when they're with their soccer coach, when they're with their public school teachers? And it may be hard to get access to some of those other professions. You can't always just walk into Mrs. Johnson, the second grade teacher, and be like, Mrs. Johnson, well, little Kenny is working on this, and I would really appreciate if you changed all your lesson plans to include this. We're going to escort you off the campus. But there are ways, especially with parents, that you can provide them the tools to continue those lessons at home and between you and the parents to influence that third tripod of those other instructors. If you group like the soccer coach and the elementary school teacher all together. So one of the ways we do it is through cultivating the parents' vocabulary as to what the skills in class are. We don't have to go super in depth. But what we coach our parents to do is to say things like, instead of how was class, which gets, that's all right. We coach them to say, I know you learned about agility today. Tell me all about it. So that builds connection because you were paying attention to your child, right? It allows them to feel competent as they teach you. And it provides them the autonomy because you're not even telling them how to answer. You're just allowing them to take that conversation wherever they want. Now, the interleaving happens when you go to the next level and you get to now say, wow, that sounds like you learned a lot about agility. What's something we could do at home, maybe when you're doing your chores, that could help you with agility? Now the chores actually become an agility lesson. And because kids love ninja classes, they might not love chores. I can boost what's happening at home with what I've done in the school. That takes a lot of training. And I know John's team does this really well, especially on social media. I know, John, you've got influence in groups upon groups with parent skills and child development stuff. So how can we connect with parents a little bit better? Because I know that's a challenge for some people, really connecting the parents and bringing them into the fold.
So, of course, social media, like, sky's the limit, right? So right now, just to let you guys know, we're using an app called Band App. And instead of posting our summer camp stuff in the Facebook group, instead of sending emails out, about our summer camp stuff, we asked all the parents to join the Band App. It's right on their phone. So now, every single day or at the end of the week, we're sending out pictures, we're doing newsletters. Hey, by the way, we decided to change this last minute stuff. But I'm seeing more connection on that because it's right on their phone than on Facebook or email. That's number one. But when it comes to classes, we're letting the parents know what we're teaching for the week. By the way, parents, today we're working on this, and this is what it means, right? And at the same time, we're letting the parents understand why we're doing what we're doing in class. So, hey, today we put we did a post about courage, and this is what we're working on in class. So try to find certain things at home, or have your child do something at home related to this skill that make it fun. And parents do it, because I tell the parents, we can either do it the hard way, or we can do it the way kids should be able to do it. And they connect. And like literally in the last 2 weeks, we've had more parents return after COVID. And they could have easily went to other schools, right? But they were just honest about it. They were like, we tried a couple of schools, and it's just the way they teach, my child shut down right away.
Yeah, most schools teach to what the adults expect rather than what the kids aren't necessarily able to do. Yeah. Now, I do want to say, though, John, you've been doing this for quite some time and cultivating these audiences. As you guys go out and start this or continue it for those already doing it, don't be discouraged if you're not getting like huge feedback and wonderful interaction, and you might not even get any views on some of the stuff that you put out. It takes time. John and I joined Skills around the same time, so we've been at this for years. If you're just starting out, even if you've been doing it for a year or two, you still might not be getting the traction you want, but it only takes one or two people to see it at the right time. Keep in mind, if you're doing this on Facebook, a Facebook post has like a 4-hour lifespan before it disappears into the ether. So you have to do it again and again and again, and sometimes tweak it and approach it from a different angle.
One more thing, real quick. Make it simple. Don't make it complicated. You know what I mean? Like, don't have them sit there and read for 5-10 minutes. If it's not at a glance within, 5 to 10 second read, forget it.
Yeah, and that's why we say, like, Jennifer puts out great blogs, and they are written at a level where it is easily consumable, but it's still kind of long for some channels. So while we do recommend blogging and getting some of that long format video out there, those are further reading resources. They are partially for algorithms and Google and keyword SEO marketing, but they are also further reading. So what you want to do is take those, digest them, boil them down to 1, maybe 2 sentences, and that becomes your post. And it might even be that you reformat it as a question. Hey, parents, do you have problems sometimes getting your kids to listen the first time? Sometimes just going over and getting down on their level can help. Want to learn more? Check out this blog. So you're giving them something to do right away, really easily consumable. And also, you need calls to action on this stuff, just like with your other marketing. Let us know how it works. Tell us one way that you've used this. Let us know if this doesn't work. You have to have that reason for them to interact, and it will take time. But it's like any other flywheel. You got to keep pushing it, and you got to keep spinning it, and eventually you'll get one person who says something, and then you'll get 2 people, and then you'll get somebody who asks a question, and then you'll get somebody who asks a question, and a few of those people respond, so you don't have to. And that's how you'll start to build the momentum with taking those lessons home. And I advise you, I know we're coming up on time here, I advise you guys to sit down and spend a little time figuring out a strategy for this. What do you do in your classes that relates to other aspects of your class? What do you do in your classes that you could tie to things the kids are already interested in outside of class? And what do you do in your classes that you wish parents would ask more about? And then this takes it from the immediate lesson all the way through that external social media, or even in your lobby. It doesn't have to be social media. It could be legit social, face to face. And really craft a plan around it. And once you have a system, it makes it so easy to take a lesson about a front kick and turn it into something life-changing for the child. And that's our goal, is to help these kids become the best versions of themselves. I would recommend that you guys reach out to Mr. Salama and get permission to join one or two of his groups to see how he does it, because I'm in a couple and I constantly see stuff and it's great stuff. So reach out to him. I'm sure he can help you with that. If you need help connecting some of the science to some of the things, let me know. Between the two of us, we'll get you going.
We'll have plenty of content.
Yes. And one more reminder, we do have CP&S starting in 2 weeks. So if you want information on that, let us know. And this morning, it was announced, it is official, that tickets for Escape, which will be September 23rd for the VIP, and then the 24th and 25th for the main event. They will be in beautiful St. Petersburg, Florida, in person, live. But there will only be 150 tickets this year. Things being what they are, it's going to be a smaller, more intimate event, completely focused on skills. Expect to see those links come out also in the next 2 weeks. Get it on your calendar because we want to hang out with you guys. Good ideas. Network.
We had a blast last year.
Yeah. Even with the smaller event, I mean, my mind is still churning through some of the stuff that all came out of that event. It was fantastic.
Yes.
All right, guys. That's about our half hour. Thank you for hanging with us. I hope you got something from it. Go get to work. Might be an action taker within 24 hours or it isn't happening.
Yep. Guys, go crush your week. Peace.
All right. Go get it.